This is a case that falls squarely on the need to protect the community. I referenced this earlier. There's really three primary reasons for the sentences I will impose here today. One is punishment, one is to protect the community, and the other is to provide justice and closure to the victims. Because under that category of need to protect,
the judge begins firmly, reminding everyone that this case is about three things: punishment, protecting the community, and giving justice to the victims. Her tone is calm, but the weight behind her words is heavy. She wants the courtroom to understand that every decision today is rooted in what the victims endured. Do you think the judge is right to put community safety first in a case like this?
the court does get to consider the impact of these crimes on the victims. I went through at length in reviewing all of those victim impact statements. I certainly didn't go through every single one, just highlighting some of them, but doing so with purpose, because it is very clear to this court that Mr. Brooks has caused carnage.
The judge explains how deeply she read the victim impact statements, not just a few lines, but pages and pages of trauma. And then she says something powerful. Mr. Brooks caused carnage and mayhem. The courtroom goes silent as she describes PTSD, emotional scars, and pain that may last a lifetime. Drama highlight: this isn't just a crime. It's a permanent wound for dozens of families.
Mayhem. It has resulted in many people suffering from PTSD, from mental and emotional trauma that will take a lifetime to recover from, and for some, perhaps, if at all. You have taken away from these individuals future memories. They will never have birthdays with the 6 individuals who were killed. There will be no weddings. There will be no graduations. There will be none of the milestones that these families were looking forward to, whether it be for an innocent 8-year-old or an innocent 79-year-old. Frankly, Mr. Brooks, no one is safe from you. This community.
Here, the judge talks about the most heartbreaking part: the memories these families will never get back. No birthdays, no graduations, no weddings. 6 innocent lives were taken, from an 8-year-old child to a 79-year-old grandmother. And then she says the line that hits the hardest. Frankly, Mr. Brooks, no one is safe from you. Audience engagement. Do you agree with the judge that he can never be safely returned to society?
Can only be safe if you are behind bars for the rest of your life. The actions of Darrell Brooks demand punishment. The community is not safe from your violent and criminal conduct unless you are in custody. You left a path of destruction, chaos, death, injury, confusion, and panic as you drove 7 or so blocks through the Christmas parade, never once stopping or seemingly caring about the wake of carnage that you left. 4 of those blocks were turned into a scene that frankly is no different than a war zone.
The judge describes the parade path like a war zone: chaos, panic, death, destruction. Brooks drove through 7 blocks without stopping once. She emphasizes that he didn't slow down, didn't hesitate, didn't show any concern for human life. And now, the judge prepares to deliver the first set of life sentences.
On counts 1 through 6, This court is imposing a life sentence without the possibility or eligibility for extended supervision consecutive to one another. One life sentence for Virginia Sorensen. One life sentence for Leanna Owen. One life sentence for Tamara Durand. One life sentence for Jane Kulik. One life sentence for Bill Hospel. And one life sentence for Jackson Sparks.
One by one, the judge reads 6 life sentences without possibility of release, each one honoring the life of someone who was killed. The families in the courtroom cannot hold back their reactions. Every name is another reminder of the day everything changed. This is justice delivered with precision, no confusion, no forgiveness, only accountability.
I've considered the enhancer and the additional 5 years that I could impose, but I don't need to really order that because I've not made him eligible for extended supervision, and it would only be to increase his time on initial confinement. But make no mistake, Mr. Brooks, you use that vehicle as a battering ram, no different than, frankly, a firearm. On counts 7 through 67, these are 61 counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety. These charges alone and these convictions without the enhancer carry a maximum of 12 and a half years. Because of the enhancer, a total of 17 and a half years. And under Wisconsin law, the 5 years is added to the initial term of confinement. So what could be 7.5 years is a maximum of 12.5 years. And I'd ask that everyone no longer show any reaction to the sentence so I can get through this. On counts 7 through 67, on each count, I will impose a total sentence of 17.5 years. 12.5 years of initial confinement, plus 5 years of extended supervision, consecutive to any other sentence that I...
Now the judge moves to the 61 counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety. Each charge carries 17.5 years, and she makes them all consecutive. This adds up to an unbelievable number, 762.5 years of confinement, plus over 300 years of supervision.
I've imposed here today. That is 762.5 years of initial confinement and 305 years of extended supervision on top of the life sentences that I've imposed. That is 17.5 years, sir, for Nicole White. 17.5 years for Eleanor Anders. 17.5 years for Sasha Catalan Castillo. 17.5 years for Maura Gilchrist. 17.5 years for Justin Gullickson. 17.5 years for Harry Guilfoy. 17.5 years for Aidan Lofgren. 17.5 years for Theo Maza. 17.5 years for Tyler Pudliner. 17.5 years for Connor Tank. 17.5 years for Eric Teagues. 17.5 years for Adelia Maffioli. 17.5 years for Kelly Graybow. 17.5 years for Josh Craner. 17.5 years for Riley Rogers. 17.5 years for Caden Rogers. 17.5 years for Tucker Sparks. 17.5 years for Isabella Bartlett. 17 and a half years for Yaritzi Becerra Montez. 17 and a half years for Samantha Coelho. 17 and a half years for Madison Hollingsworth. 17 and a half years for Mackenzie Hollingsworth. 17 and a half years for Mitchell Lampine. 17 and a half years for Kathleen Pielmeyer. 17 and a half years for Julia Schleichow. 17 and a half years for Olivia Stover. 17 and a half years for Jennifer Stover. 17 and a half years for Jessica.
The judge continues reading name after name. Each victim gets their own sentence. It feels endless because the suffering was endless. She is making sure every injured person is acknowledged in the official record. This is not symbolic. It is recognition. And yet, even after hundreds of years in sentencing, the judge is not done.
Jocelyn Torres. 17 and a half years for Alice Urell. 17 and a half years for Charlotte Urell. 17 and a half years for Vivian Urell. 17 and a half years for Grayson Urell. 17 and a half years for Lola Hospital. 17 and a half years for Tamara Rosentrader. 17 and a half years for Betty Strang. 17 and a half years for Maria Alvarez Dominguez. 17 and a half years for Gregoria Romelia Perez. 17 and a half years for Elliot Hallmark. 17 and a half years for Benjamin Hallmark. 17 and a half years for Patrick Heppy. 17 and a half years for Lori Locken. 17 and a half years for Marisol Lopez Gutierrez. 17 and a half years for Adair Lopez Rubelar. 17 and a half years for Juan Marquez. 17 and a half years for David Marquez. 17 and a half years for William Mitchell. 17 and a half years for Jason Petchloff. 17 and a half years for Margaret Pachulis. 17 and a half years for Yamilet Perales Alvarez. 17 and a half years for Island Perales Alvarez. 17 and a half years for Ashley Perales Alvarez. 17 and a half years for Jose Perales Alvarez. 17 and a half years for Maria Perez. 17 and a half years for Camila Perez Gonzalez. 17 and a half years for Isaac Foglia. 17 and a half years for Deborah Ramirez. 17 and a half years for Charles Green. 17 and a half years for Lily Green. 17 and a half years for Brinley Harris. 17 and a half years for Kelsey Knapp. 17 and a half years for Owen Briciotti. On counts 68 through 73, which are the 6 counts of hit and run resulting in death, these are 25-year felonies each. The court will do the following. On count 68, a 25-year total sentence, 15 years of initial confinement, 10 years of extended supervision. This will be concurrent to count 1. Count 69, the same sentence, 25 years total, 15 years of initial confinement, 10 years of extended supervision, concurrent to count 2. Did I say that the right way, the first one? Okay. Count 68 is concurrent to count 1. Count 69 is concurrent to count 2. Count 70, 25 years total, 15 years of initial confinement, 10 years of extended supervision, concurrent to count 3. Count 71, 25 years total, 15 years of initial confinement, 10 years of extended supervision, concurrent to count 4. Count 72, 25-year total, 15 years of initial confinement, 10 years of extended supervision, concurrent to count 5. And on count 73, a 25-year total sentence, 15 years of initial confinement, 10 years of extended supervision, concurrent to count 6.
Now she addresses the 6 hit-and-run deaths. Each count brings 25 more years, and she aligns some concurrent to earlier sentences, but keeps the overall weight heavy. She reminds the courtroom that Brooks used his vehicle like a weapon, no different than a firearm. The judge is making sure every act of violence is accounted for in the final punishment.
Count 74 and 75, the 2 felony counts of bail jumping. The court is ordering a 6-year sentence total on each count, 3 years of initial confinement, 3 years of extended supervision, consecutive to all other counts but concurrent with one another. And lastly, but certainly not least, the maximum sentence for the battery to Erica Patterson, 9 months consecutive to any other sentence. To order anything other than what I have done, sir, would be to unduly depreciate the seriousness of these offenses. It is needed, although largely symbolic, given the number of years that I have imposed here today, because frankly, you deserve it. I know it's symbolic, but it needs to hold you accountable in a very real and tangible way. For all of these sentences that I have imposed, I will order the following conditions: no contact with the victims as identified in the amended victim key or their families, no contact of any kind with Erica Patterson. You are to pay restitution in the amount of $47,193.29 to EMC Insurance Company, that's on behalf of the Waukesha School District, and $124,000, $220.65 to the Crime Victim Compensation Program. I am ordering DNA surcharges on all counts. On counts 1 through 75, it's $250. On count 76, it's $200. Those are mandatory under the law. I'm also imposing the domestic abuse surcharge on count 76 of $100. I'm also imposing all standard court costs on all counts, although my primary emphasis is that restitution be paid before costs, surcharges, and fees. I will order that restitution, costs, and fees be paid out of prison money. In other words, that all financial obligations shall be collected pursuant to statutory provisions as requested by the state. That's frankly a standard, it's customary, but it will be in the judgment of conviction. And then pursuant to 949.165, I'll find that it is appropriate for this court to order an escrow account.
She adds more sentences: bail jumping, battery, financial penalties, DNA surcharges, and restitution, totaling over $170,000. Even though she knows the punishment is symbolic compared to the massive sentence already given, she says clearly, you deserve it. Audience question: do you think symbolic sentences matter in a case this large?
Count under 949.165 for payment of restitution, costs, fees, surcharges, and even for costs associated with prior legal representation or future representation under the statute. Mr. Brooks has been convicted of a number of serious crimes for which this section is appropriate. I will order 360 days credit as to count 1 and count 68. Only all other counts, 0 days credit because of the consecutive nature of these sentences that I...
Professional final overview. This case stands as one of the most severe sentencings in American criminal history. Darrell Brooks was given multiple life sentences, over 700 years of confinement, and additional penalties for every injury, every trauma, and every life affected. The judge emphasized community safety, victim justice, and accountability. The broader impact? The ruling sends a message. In a tragedy this large, every victim counts, and the justice system will respond with full force. Final call to action. If you found this breakdown helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more courtroom analysis, dramatic case commentary, and real-world justice stories. And tell me in the comments, do you think the judge delivered the right sentence? Why or why not?